Welcome back to the 100 Horror Films in 31 Days. This is day 23. It's starting to have an impact. I'm going to reach the finish line here, but it's tough to cram in 100 movies in 31 days. Anyway, I got 3 films in today. First up is Julie Christie, 1977's The Demon Seed. Now, this film was based on a Dean Koontz novel, and it's basically an artificial intelligence story. Julie Christie, who was in Don't Look Now, famous British actress, Don't Look Now, I remember her in that. She was in Shampoo with Warren Beatty. She is essentially being controlled by a computer. It's very much similar to HAL from 2001, kind of a variant of that. But the slant in this one is the computer wants to procreate with her. Ridiculous story. Feels very much like a TV movie. It also stars character actor Fritz Weaver as the scientist, kind of the guy orchestrating all this artificial intelligence. Of course, Fritz Weaver was also in Creepshow. He's very good in this, and Julie Christie's good in this. It's a ridiculous story, but I think it's worth your 90 minutes. It's fun, cheesy entertainment. I enjoyed it for what it was, so I give it a 6 out of 10. Next up is a film I'd never seen before. I've had this Scream Factory release for a long time, and it's 1987's Dolls. Of course, this is an Empire production, Charles Band, directed by Stuart Gordon from Reanimator. And it's basically just kind of like a variation of The Puppet Master. I mean, it's nothing earth-shattering from a storyline perspective. This older couple are doll makers, and you get a storm creates. You get this scenario just like in the old Dark House. A storm. You've got travelers that go through a storm, and they end up having to go to this house for refuge. The house, of course, is owned by these 2 old people that are witches, posing as doll makers, and then of course the normal kind of silliness starts to happen with the dolls coming alive and killing off the people that visit the house. I mean, it's pretty straight up story, very much similar to the Puppet Master films. I'm not a big fan. I think it's kind of a lightweight story, but yeah, I think these are the kind of films that if you were a kid back in the early 80s or mid 80s and you saw this film, it probably would resonate with you more and stay with you longer than it does with me, because I'm more of a child of the 70s. So this just doesn't have any kind of nostalgia for me. And I'm not a big fan. I'm just not a big fan of Full Moon. I've never warmed up to him. Most of the films I've watched are barely passable. Anyway, I know this release is, people rave about this release, and in fact I've seen some people rate this one of the best Scream Factory releases of all time. I'm not going to dispute that. It's chock full of special features, and I'll work my way through those probably in November. But as far as the movie itself, I mean, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It was a decent watch, but nothing earth-shattering. Then I finished the day with a really, really good film. I love this film, and that is Blue Underground's release of Dick Moss's Amsterdam, 1988. This is a slasher gem, I think. I loved this film. I thought it was fantastic. Dick Moss is an interesting character. He's a Dutch film director that married. I've got a bunch of useless knowledge here, but he was married to Max, like a cousin or a granddaughter of Max Uwe. who was the world chess champion back in the 1930s. The only Dutch world chess champion. So useless knowledge there for you. Amsterdam is about a killer that wears underground, basically deep sea diving or gear, and he's basically trolling the canals of Amsterdam, killing off people. It's more like a giallo than a slasher film, along the lines of a whodunit. I liked it a whole lot, and I've heard a number of people complain about the compression issues on the release, and that Blue Underground is issuing replacement discs, and the copy that I have looks fantastic. I saw no issues with it, so maybe I just bought it at a point where they'd already been producing corrected discs. I thought it looked fantastic. There's an audio commentary on here and a number of special features that I can't wait to go through, but I give this an 8 out of 10. This film got picked up and released, and I believe it was Vestron that released this and distributed it in America to theaters, and it was like their number 2 or 3 earning film in that period. But what's ironic enough, I'd never heard of it till Blue Underground released it. That's kind of ironic. I loved it. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen Amsterdam, do yourself a favor and pick up this Blue Underground release. It's awesome. Okay, that will do it for day 23. I'm getting there, but I'm definitely starting to wear and tear on me. But I appreciate you watching. Thanks.